This one goes to the module developers out there. What's your current module recipe? What are the technologies that you use to create a module right now in DNN? What do you use for the front end? Bootstrap, Angular, Vue, React? What do you use for backends? MVC, SPA, Razor? What is it? What's your recipe?
We work with module development in DNN today. I'm using primarily the MVC module pattern where possible. Backend services, we're using Entity Framework, oftentimes using Web API, .NET Core behind the scenes, trying to make everything as upgradable and future-proof as possible. From the front-end perspective, it depends on the particular solution. Bootstrap, Angular are definitely the most go-to items, and then everything else depending on what we're looking for.
Hey Aderson. I don't know if it's too loud or not where I'm at, but we'll give this a shot. What is my DNN module recipe? We at Data Springs have been doing more and more modules that are connected, kind of like being used as APIs to connect to mobile. So it's kind of used as the middle layer. So for registration, you know, we send posts to dynamic registration, or for completion events and dynamic forms, we have mobile apps send posts, so we can sort of control all of the CMS data, still using the modules, but yet it's for a little different purpose than people used to use it. Besides that, just handling updates. We've been working on DNN 9.2, and there's been 500 API calls that were removed with that. So quite a few changes in the modules. Nice to hear from you. See ya. Bye.
If I'm building a module from scratch, my current recipe for the front end is usually Vue.js for client-side data binding, using Web API in the background, pre-rendering my initial data to the page. So I do that through a web forms module or with MVC, and try not to use any jQuery in any of my new builds, plain old JavaScript, or components that have minimal dependencies.
My DNN module recipe usually starts with the DNN MVC platform. I really like how it gives me the comfort of what I've grown to expect and love in the ASP.NET MVC world and inside of DNN. On the front end, I'll typically end up using Bootstrap or Foundation. I really like using Bootstrap inside of the DNN space because it's already built into the platform itself. But if I want something that looks a little bit more business-oriented as opposed to social-oriented, I'll start looking at something like Foundation, which has cleaner lines as opposed to the more socially driven lines that you'd see in the Bootstrap framework. Then the controllers are super powerful, and I can write all my C# code to it. If I'm not doing an MVC project, I'll typically look at the Too Sexy Contents app development platform, which is super flexible, and I'm able to do just about everything I can in MVC and Too Sexy, just different tools to solve the problem. And something that I do is a little bit different that I can use in either of those patterns is I like to use Azure Functions and serverless programming to create very simple, lightweight APIs that I can call from any module or website that I'm building. And it's really useful if I need to encapsulate some other service in a very easy REST call. And now any rules or security that's in addition to that I need to do, I can just wrap up in those functions. And those are a couple different things that I do for module development.
I'm not sure I have a consistent module development recipe, but I think lately it's been using my Persona Bar starter project, because lately I've been doing a lot of administrative modules. The Persona Bar starter template has a Persona Bar React module and a companion module that also gets packaged with it. That's a SPA module with Web API services. So the typical administrative module I've been developing is something where you're putting data into an administrative backend, which is a Persona Bar React UI with a Web API layer, and then you're getting that stuff out like visualizers, like a structured content approach, and that same service layer is serving it up to a SPA module. And so the tools are, React, Grunt for a build pipeline, and Visual Studio. Hope that helps. And if you want to see that Persona Bar starter template, go to .NET Nuclear on GitHub. Thanks.
Hi guys. We at DNN Sharp use Web API on the backend, and on the front end we use Bootstrap and AngularJS most of the time. This has a clear advantage that you can easily adjust front end without messing with the backend, and modify backend without messing with the front end, and additionally you get a public API that you can offer to others to communicate with your module. But that's not all that I have to say about module development. There are two other factors that I urge all developers to take into account. One is the integration points or extension points. That is, allow others to hook into your module, to add custom functionality. If you have an e-commerce solution, add extension point for providers, for payments, for transport, for taxes, and so on. For example, in our forms, in our action form module, we have a lot of add-ons, which are basically add functionality integrations with Salesforce, MailChimp, PayPal, and a dozen others. And besides that, we have, I think, maybe another 100 extensions that are custom-made for our clients. And this gives a lot of flexibility to a module to be used as a framework. And if you develop more than one modules, try to use the same extension mechanism across the modules. So you end up having extensions that work with all the modules. That's what we did at DNN Sharp, and it's been a great feature for our clients to be able to write a custom code once and reuse it in all our action-based modules. And finally, another aspect that is, I think, is not taken into account that much, except maybe some integration with file providers, is cloud compatibility, or most precisely optimized for the cloud. Because if you're on Azure or Amazon, they provide such great services, and it's a pity not to leverage them. We at DNN Sharp, we created our own hosting infrastructure on Amazon Web Services. We are also an Amazon partner, and we leverage those services, and the results have been fantastic. I mean, in terms of speed, it's great, and performance is great. So I urge you to take this into account as well. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Happy day to you, Aderson. So there is really no one-size-fits-all type approach for DNN module development, but we do tend to gravitate more towards the SPA module approach, using Angular, everything from AngularJS version 1 to Angular 5, and for CSS, most of the time we gravitate towards Bootstrap 4. The bigger thing about our recipe, though, is our module development pattern as far as how we set up a Visual Studio project. We do not develop inline within DNN unless just absolutely have to because of a client requirement. We do a disconnected module development pattern where we try to remove as many dependencies as possible on the DNN instance itself. This helps us to test better, make sure our package is functioning properly, and a lot of times we use DNN Packager for automating the copy over to another DNN instance locally, but when we don't use that, we have our own little pattern that we use that just we develop using NuGet packages and build it out and then install the package on a dev server or somewhere else that's not local. So it really just depends on the project, but yeah, that's probably more about our recipe than anything else. Thanks. Have a good day.
Hey Aderson, how are you? This is Ash here from DNN Corp. Very good question about what framework or technology we've been using for module development. So the last 18 months or so, our prime focus had been on doing the persona bar in the platform. This was something that was built in Evoke, and we migrated that over to to the DNN platform, and that extensively used React.js. It is flexible. It's complex. I'll tell you that it's complex. Not easy to implement, but once you get a hang of it, it comes pretty handy. We have about 30 plus reusable components, tree views, drop down, and then things like that that you could take advantage of. The other place where we did a lot of development is the visualizers in the liquid content. And again, that's also built using React.js. Both of them are backed by Web API. So we strongly believe that Web API provides you access to those information from not only your UI, but also from mobile apps too. So that's why it serves both the purposes. But having said that, we as a platform at DNN Corp, we support and we believe in supporting whatever framework that you're comfortable with. For example, if you're an enterprise developer, we know that you use MVC quite a lot, and we have made sure that MVC is a first-class citizen in DNN. And we'll continue to invest on it, either internally from our DNN Corp or with some of our community members who are actually providing a lot of updates to the MVC. So that's also another go-to technology. I do know that a lot of enterprise customers or developers love it, so do continue to use it. But generally speaking, don't use WebForm because that's an older technology. But if you're comfortable, definitely that still works. So that's it. Thank you.
First thing is never build into desktop modules. That's just awful. You have all kinds of issues with source control and having to deal with versioning if you decide to support different versions of DNN. And then you also, part of our pattern is to make sure whatever we have, the solution automatically builds packages, whether they're source and or release packages, deal with versioning, all that. And we definitely always make sure that our modules are at the very least the MVC pattern at this point, and MVC with SPA front end, so it's never just MVC. So that way it's forward thinking. It can be headless. We can integrate with other things, such as mobile apps and whatnot. And definitely love Angular. Love Angular with Bootstrap. It greatly reduces the amount of development time and integration time. Especially when you go to things like website redesigns and whatnot. So that's really how we look at it. Thanks.
In our company, LITESCU, we don't do much module development, but when we do, we use the teachings of Scott Wilkinson. Scott has a course on DNN Hero on how to do module development. So the approach that we take is the SPA approach, the single page application. On the back end, we use Entity Framework and Web APIs. And on the front end, we use Angular and with Bootstrap. So that's our recipe, that's our combo. Thank you.